Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over 8 basic folds. Now usually they would say 7 basic folds, but I believe, and well this is what I've also been taught by Will Weston, but he also thinks that pleats are a really underrated kind of main fold, so I will add that as well because I think that I agree with him on that. We will go over pleats, like pleated skirts and the like. So let's first get started with our number 1 pipe fold, which is one of the easier folds. The easiest fold, I should say. It's one of the most basic. So I'm just going to be drawing some examples here. So examples of a pipe fold would be skirts, like just free-flowing skirts, or just simply curtains. Anything that is hanging from one point, anything that kind of just looks like a straight down pipe. So I would say some skirts. And even sleeves for the matter, but this is how you draw a pipe fold. A pipe fold is very simple. All you need to do is just draw one point, and then simply draw one fold. So I like to kind of diversify a little bit of my folds. So when it comes to folds like this, there's always going to be a peak fold. So that's where the elliptical area comes in, and then the rest, it kind of just crinkles back. So it kind of looks like this in a side view. This is what it looks like, because that's the gravity pulling one side more outward. So that is an example of a pipe fold. Another kind, let's say a curtain, for example. Let's say it's being held by one point or two on one side, and then it ends like this. Kind of looks like a pipe, right? And then what you can do is you can just go ahead and do the same thing, having a bit of a cloth in the middle to show the intersection. So one way to do this is simply just by drawing squiggly lines, I should say, and then drawing the peaks out. So that is one way to draw some pipe folds. And those are a very, very basic kind of fold that can work with anything. Dresses work great. Now, a diaper fold. Now, this is more of an old kind of term, a diaper, because back then diapers were made just by hanging two cloths and kind of just using pins and everything. Now, of course, we have stick-on kind of diapers that, that are just very convenient and easy to throw away. But back then, diapers were used with just regular cloth. And that is just basically cloth that is hung by 2 points. Now, whatever kind of point or how high it is can vary, but the main kind of type would be just you have 2 points, then the cloth is separated. So it's not really exactly a pipe fold, it's a diaper fold. So notice how you also have these circular transitions showing the stretch. Now this can also be done using different kinds of heights as well. So let's do a top and a bottom. Then let's just connect it. So when it's going down, the slope is actually a lot steeper, and then when it goes up, it's a lot shorter. That's how you want to organize your folds. And of course, you can always include pipe folds in here as well. Nobody's saying you can't. But just also make sure that the key of a diaper fold is, one, that it's 2 points, but two, that you have to show the motion of where the points are being attached to. So that's a diaper fold. Those can be good for such things like ribbons, for example. Let's say if I have a dress here. Diaper folds are great when you want to have ribbons flying over the dress. So let's say you have 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, then you just connect the two together. And those make really good diaper folds. You can add some ribbons next to it. So that's just another way of how to use diaper fold in cloth, right? So this is a very easy way to draw it. So here we have our pipe fold and diaper fold. You usually just see them depending on where, I guess, it could just be anything where a cloth is draped over something, or ribbons, for example. So let's say like decoration, etc. These are not really seen in particular areas unless, you just see them. You kind of just see them in places, and then you're like, oh, well, that's not a very specific area where this is seen, unlike the pipe fold. So where the pipe fold, you can kind of see direct examples like curtains and skirts and dresses. This you can't see as much unless it's purposely done that way. Now here we have a zigzag fold, and a zigzag fold is also pretty simple. This is for when you're wearing something, like for instance a long sleeve shirt, and then the cloth just kind of rests on there and makes a zigzag kind of like shape. So for example, if I have an arm, actually, yeah, let's give him an arm. Give this person an arm. Let's say this is his hand. You're going to draw a sweater, a loose kind of sweater on him, or a button-up shirt. Button-up shirts are the best case for this. So all you really need to do is just kind of draw your sleeve. I would kind of give a little bit of a silhouette change, just kind of make it a little bit zigzaggy. And let's give him a cuff, right? Zigzags would just happen when the cloth just doesn't know where to go. It's just more like an effect of what gravity is doing as well as how crinkled it is. So zigzag folds just have a very zigzag-like shape. Of course, don't overdo it. Don't put it everywhere. Just put it in areas, where they would usually crinkle their shirts or when it's resting. So I would always like to put it around the bottom and a little bit around the joint. So for example, I'm going to draw another kind. Let's say this is an arm. So I like to put crinkles around the elbows because that is where we bend our arms all the time, obviously, and I like to put them below just around the cuff, right? And that's just because it's where most of the gravity is hinging off of. And of course, I always also like to put in some diagonal folds towards the tension, towards the seam line. So that's usually where I like to put my folds at. Of course, this is just, don't overdo it, as always. Just make sure that it is an appropriate amount. Because if you so this is what you should do, and this is what you should not do. So I see some students doing this sometimes, and of course this is rather difficult, so I don't blame them. Even I can get confused about it sometimes back then. So some people would just put them everywhere, just kind of like everywhere. And of course, this looks pretty good too, and this is kind of more like a muscle memory thing, but they will put it everywhere to the point where it gets a little bit too messy. So you don't want to do this. You want to just carefully place them in areas where it would most likely appear, such as gravity pulling down the shirt downward, kind of collecting up around the ends and around the elbow. So that's where I want you guys to put most of your folds. So now let's get on to the spiral fold, which is similar to the zigzag fold, but just it's going in a more circular, cylindrical motion. So this will be easier when it comes to fabrics that are literally like just kind of more like, I would say more form-fitting on the arms, for example, or even on the waist. Usually that would fit more with tighter clothing, but looser clothing works as well. So one example is if I draw an arm here. Let's see. So let's draw a little bent arm here. So 1, 2. Let's say this shirt is quite tight or just somewhat tight. So this is a hand here. As you can see, very, very simple. So let me zoom in. So when it comes to drawing these folds, first you want to draw in the fold itself or the clothing itself. Just overlap it on top. Make sure that you treat the arm like a cylinder so that you end it with a cylinder. So this is what it will look like without the guidelines inside. Of course, we have a little bit of a fold around the elbow area. But here we have our main sleeve. If you want, you can even do the spiral fold on top of the arm, for example. So spiral folds generally have a more twisted, more round fold to it, rather than a zigzag fold like this on top. So let's try again. So let's try for more, let's say like a sweater-like texture. So here we have a sweater-like sleeve that's a little bit thicker. Now these would have more zigzag folds just because it's not clinging onto an arm. But, let's say if you're bending the arm a little bit, it would kind of go across and over a cylinder. So generally spiral type folds are more, not as zigzag, but just more spiral. So obviously more cylindrical in form. Now the half lock fold is the easiest fold, I believe, just because it's very, very simple. The only place where you would most likely focus on here would be areas of tension or areas of bending. So for instance, you have an arm here. Let's see, If I have an arm facing up this way, and you have the hand here. If we have, let's say if we have a tight piece of clothing here, generally you have the sleeve. And then the half lock fold is basically folds that appear when your arm is bent or even when your knee is bent. So all we really have to do is just do this. Just draw folds just to show that there's a bend in the arm. And that's really it. And this is, of course, you can also add some zigzag or spiral folds along a sleeve as well if you want, but that's just up to you guys. Let's do another one with a more looser feel. So let's make it more bent this way. Let's say it's a a worker's outfit, or like let's just say it's an office outfit underneath the shirt. So it'll be more baggy, but we still have some half lock folds. So notice how it's all crinkled up in one area, and then the folds kind of follow it. And then of course you can add other folds along as well. Either pipe folds or spiral folds or zigzag folds, whichever you like. So that is basically a half lock fold. If you're gonna do one on, let's say, knees, that's easy as well. All you have to do is just draw a leg. Let's see, this is the front of the leg, this is the calf area. So here's a side, and here is the foot. Here's the kneecap. All we really have to do is, let's say if this person's wearing some jeans, some tight jeans, here is the pocket, here's a seam line, here's the end, and then here all we have to do is just draw some folds underneath. That's all we really have to do. And that is the half lock fold. Whoops. Alright, so now let's get started with the flying slash flag fold, which is also pretty simple to do. All you really have to do is understand that this is a cloth that is flying in motion. Generally, let's say I'm going to draw a little flag here, so this is a little pole. Here's the flag. And all it really has to do is just kind of free flow in whatever direction it is. So all it is just, a nice flag that is basically in motion. So how do I do this? So one kind of way is to understand where it goes. So let's say we have a bit of a dress that is flowing outward because of the wind picking up this way. Generally, then the cloth itself will kind of float up. So let me zoom in. That's quite close, actually. So for instance, if I have a little bit of a dress here, and if we're going to go Marilyn Monroe on this, if the skirt starts flying upward, let's draw some legs here because I want to draw some legs for the dress. If the wind goes up this way, and let's say she's pulling it down, all the clothing will basically be flowing upward. And you would see more of the underside of the cloth. So it's generally floating or flying folds would generally kind of be very free form, but they would still have a direction of where it's going. Another kind would be similar to just a free-flowing ribbon, for example, or free-flowing curtain. All you have to do is just draw where the direction of the wind is going, and then add the folds on top. Pipe folds, ruffles, whatever. So that is the general basics of a flying flag fold. Here we have the dead fold, which is a mix of everything, but it's dead. So meaning it's basically dead, right? There's no movement to it. It's basically like when you drop a towel onto the floor, and that's it. So to draw that, all you really need to do is just draw a little mound. The silhouette can work fine. It doesn't have to be, super precise. It could just be you draw a mound, and then you draw little bits of fold here, and draw some clothes on top, or more fabric over it. That's it. That's really it. Another kind would just be kind of laying on the floor, maybe more diagonally. Maybe this is more of a thinner piece, maybe like a handkerchief, for example. And just by making it lie on the floor like this, without any motion, that means it's dead, right? So that's pretty much it for the dead fold. And pleats are my favorite. Now there's different kinds of pleats. There are wavy pleats, which are basically just ruffles. If you see on those like delicate lace patterns, they basically just look like ribbons, right? So all you really have to do is just draw a curve, or just draw multiple curves. Then you just gotta connect all the peaks as little pipe folds. That is the gist of a ruffle. And these can come in different shapes and sizes, but that's generally what it is. And if you want, and because we can see multiple sides, we want to add in the inner side as well, because that's what we can see. And as you go more towards the right or the left, you can see the opposite side more. So that's why I'm not drawing any sides underneath on this side, because I'm looking at this side now rather than this. So that's one way of doing ruffles. I'll do a bigger version just so it's not too clowny looking. So some kinds would just be like this. And then once again, we just connect. So these are good for nice, accents of ruffles. This is really important when it comes to costume drawing as well. So that is your wavy type of ruffle. These work for nice little skating skirts and just overall dresses as well. Then we have our pleats, our regular normal pleats, which are basically like your ordinary pleated skirt. All you really have to do is just draw one layer on top of the other. And then have a little pleat in between just to show the forms. That's really it. That's what a pleat is, a normal pleat is. If you want to draw a skirt, for example, like a student skirt, all you really have to do is just draw a cylinder, which is an ellipse, then you connect straight, and then another ellipse at the bottom. And then draw another cylinder, just a little bit wider this time, and then make your pleats, one in front of the other. And make sure you change the silhouette a little bit. So notice how I'm going outside of the cylinder and making my own little silhouette down here. So I'm overlapping as well. A lot of these pleats are just lots of overlap. And then if you want to add some depth, add some sides to these pleats. So those are your normal pleats. And then these are some other pleats that I don't usually use as often, but these are your zigzag pleats, which basically just go like this. Similar to the regular pleat, but just more zigzag and not as round. So all you really need to do is just connect the tops of each, and then connect all the bottoms. So it looks kind of like a triangular prism going downward. So this is your one side, second side. So I make these value differences just so I can tell which one's which. So that is another kind of pleat, which you don't have to do as much, but I like doing it. Then there's another kind of zigzag one, which is more like a squarish round look. So for instance, you have a square instead of a round pleat here. So here, two, so you can see where I'm going with this. So it's more of like a squarish pleat, and all you really have to do is connect the tops. And that's kind of another pleat that you guys can use. So pleats are very important for understanding and making little details on your dresses or your clothes, just to make them a little bit more interesting. So that's why I feel like these are more underrated, but you can just go ahead and add those to your collection. So I'm just going to be drawing the back side. which you don't have to really pay too much attention to if you can't see the back. So all I'm really going to do is I'm just going to draw in the shade in the back side. Alright, so that's pretty much it for all these folds. Let me go zoom out and show you guys what we've done. So here we have a good amount of folds now. So we have our basic folds, which are our pipe folds, our diaper folds, zigzag folds, spiral folds, flying flag folds, and then dead folds, and then your pleats. So that was pretty fun. Let me know what you guys think, and hopefully that this helped a bunch. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.